Let's talk about minimalism. So what is minimalism? To me, minimalism is about living life simply. It's about focusing on the things in your life that bring you true happiness. People live fast lives. We are always rushing from one thing to the next. But you must ask yourself, does your life bring true happiness? I mean, when you wake up every day, do you look forward to your day? Are you simply going through the motions? Or perhaps doing what others tell you to? You see, we live in this bubble called society. Society sets expectations for how we should act. The problem is, there is always an agenda. You need this fancy car, this big house, this killer flat screen TV. The problem is, these things will never truly make you happy. According to a global happiness study done by a global leader in market research, Ipsos, in 2019, only 14% of people globally claim they are very happy. Even worse, this figure drops down to 10% for South Africans. So many of us aren't happy. 7 years ago, I was positively miserable with how my life was going. In school, I had a strong desire to fill that emptiness with the hope of getting a well-paying job and making a lot of money. Like many, I believed that this is what I needed to fit in, to feel truly content. That is, until one day I stumbled upon a video about minimalism, and boy was I wrong. In this video, they spoke about how our material possessions can weigh us down. By eliminating excess, we more greatly value the things we do have, and that this, in turn, can lead to us feeling more free. After watching the video, I became quite interested in minimalism as a lifestyle, so the following day I decided to give it a chance. I started with my clothing. I decided to make a list of what I had. Then I meticulously tracked what I wore for 1 month. Shockingly, I found that I hadn't worn about 80% of it. It was time for the decluttering to begin. Anything I had not worn over that period was thrown out. It was time to find them a new home. According to earth.org, the fashion industry is responsible for 20% of global wastewater. It takes 2,700 liters of water to make one t-shirt. That's enough water for one person to drink for 900 days. Furthermore, nearly 10% of microplastics dispersed in the ocean each year come from textiles. I met up with Tasli Swat, a fashion designer who aims to combat the waste being produced through fast fashion.
Studying fashion and textile, you notice all of the waste that you actually reduce by making mock-ups. Like the patterns that you make, sometimes they're not as effective as they can be. So then you actually end up with lots of fabric waste. It's like a byproduct of that. When I did my honours, I collected all of this fabric and I was actually overwhelmed by how much it is. So I decided to use this fabric by cutting it up and actually making new textiles with it. What I do is I eco-print and I use lots of natural dyes and natural fabrics, but I also thrift a lot and use a lot of fabric waste, and also I use a lot of rust in my work as well, so rusted objects and that, to dye all my fabrics and that with. So one of the challenges that I face, you can't always get consistency with eco-printing, and people don't realize how much behind the scenes testing actually goes into it, and it takes very long. I just want people to just think before they buy stuff. So with the fast fashion industry, it's made us get this need for instant gratification. So I just want people to think about the fabrics they're wearing, think about who made this, how was this made, is this actually ethically made? I want to show people how much you're actually wasting, to make them more mindful, because most consumers don't know what happens behind the scenes. So I feel like if more consumers are aware of what happens behind the scenes of like the production process, then the fashion industry will actually be forced to slow down the trends a bit and to actually give people good quality stuff. You just need to have a few good basics. So basics are basically a few pants, few dresses and few tops that you can match with basically anything. And then get yourself a few statement pieces. Get a few like slow fashion items that just bring those basics to life. And also try not to follow trends to the T, because next season you probably won't even be able to wear it. Being in South Africa, by the time the trends reach us, there's already new trends in America. So that causes lots of people to actually impulsively buy stuff. So just go to the shop, look at the thing, go back home, and then go buy it the next time.
Minimalism pushes you to be intentional with your consumption of goods, not only for the sake of lessening the mental burden of owning a bunch of stuff, but also for the positive effect it can have on the environment. To further explore the effects our overconsumption has on our environment, I'm meeting up with Laura, who works for GreenCycle, a non-profit organization that provides a recycling service here in Gqeberha, South Africa.
Really, it was out of necessity. I'm obviously from England and was very used to recycling. It's always been something that I felt was important. When I came to Port Elizabeth, there were no options. You could take your metal to the scrapyard, but your plastic, which, as we know, are the bane of our lives, there were no options for recycling that. So a friend and I started it, thinking that maybe people would like to do the same as you do in other countries, and you can just put it outside. So yeah, that's how it started. It's been an incredible learning curve. I mean, so steep. I think the initial idea we had changed so much. It's what it actually is, and the logistics required to do what we do. 16 years on, and here we are making a difference. I think if I look at it from a local perspective, so Port Elizabeth, we know that there's a problem with landfill. Keeping waste out of landfill is really, really important. And then of course from the environmental impact, anything that's sort of coming in here means that it can't be flying about in the environment, it can't end up in our ocean. We need to look after it. Recycling, for some reason, people seem to think that it's something you should be able to do and it shouldn't cost you anything and it shouldn't be difficult. And I would say to people that we're responsible for what comes into our homes and thereby responsible for what happens to it. It's not a difficult thing to do. It does make a big difference. I think education around why you should be doing it and the actual value of it is probably quite important and might change a few minds. If you give people sort of the power or the responsibility for something, it makes them feel good. They can actually physically see the difference they're making. Best way to recycle, and this is an international sort of standard, is separation at source, because it means plastics don't get dirty, things don't get contaminated. So again, that's a great reason for asking people to do it where they are. And it gives you a perspective of what you're using, kind of at least gives you a visual of the impact you might be having. Reduction for me really is the key. Reduce as much as you can. Don't buy plastic, bottled water. Reuse your bottles, go and get them filled up. There's no excuse for buying a plastic shopping bag. Take a bag with you, get used to it. People say, I forget. Don't forget, or penalise yourself if you do. That means you have to take it all out in the trolley loose and put it in your car. Buy things loose. Don't put your vegetables in a little plastic bag. Bananas have got skin on them. Oranges have got, you can just have them loose. Or use a paper bag or something. So those simple changes. People say, no, I'm just going to throw it away. And actually there is no way. It all has to go somewhere. It does, because it's gone from your property doesn't mean it's gone from the planet, So I think people must be mindful of that.
This world we live in is beautiful. It is up to us to ensure it stays a beautiful place. Therefore, we need to be mindful of our actions. By focusing on what truly matters, we can strip away the excess and create a space for the things that bring real value to our lives. Minimalism isn't just about less, it's about more. More meaning, more purpose, and more of what makes life beautiful. A common misconception about minimalism is that it's purely about owning as few possessions as possible. However, the core of minimalism lies in its intentionality. It promotes the value of experiences over material possessions. Instead of cluttering our lives with things that fill empty spaces, or that we use to compare and validate ourselves against others, we should forego such distractions to focus on that which is truly meaningful and enriches our lives in some way. This is my room. It wasn't always as well put together. I used to have way too much stuff. Now everything here actually has a purpose. In turn, I find myself valuing that which I do have much more now than in the past. I'm intentional with what I own and how I choose to spend my time. We ask the question, is minimalism our ticket to happiness? Minimalism can simplify life and reduce stress, but it's not a cure-all. It's merely a tool that can help some people find more meaning and contentment. Adopting minimalism is a gradual process that requires ongoing reflection and adjustment. It's about finding what works best for you. While minimalism has helped me find more fulfillment, it's important to recognize that it might not be the right path for everyone. Different people find happiness in different ways. Therefore, there is no shortcut to happiness or fulfillment. We are all searching for an easy band-aid to our complex problems and situations. However, minimalism is but one potential stepping stone in changing our views and life in pursuit of happiness. Life is complex, and many factors come into play that shape our lives. Society's expectations can cause us to feel trapped in our daily lives. Therefore, we need to be very mindful of what we expose ourselves to. Today, in the digital age, this is even more abundantly clear. Our access to media at the palm of our hands connects us with people from around the globe. We are so easily influenced by those around us that we find ourselves competing and obsessing over how we present ourselves to others. Our desire to impress others through money or status leads us to feel burdened and empty. Through minimalism, I realized how truly pointless all of that was. Instead of fixating on superficial goods, I decided to let go. Being intentional led me to appreciate the aspects of life that truly bring me joy. Like spending time in nature, I found that lasting happiness comes from living a pure and simple life, caring for the world and others. The beauty of life lies in the relationships and moments we share with the world around us. Minimalism for me is more like a guide. It's not about having less for the sake of it, but about being more mindful of how we spend our time and energy. When we're intentional, we can let go of the unnecessary stress we tend to pile on ourselves.